The space around Earth's solar system suddenly filled with light. 500 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace like falling stars. Each ship was the size of a small city, made of some kind of crystal that sparkled in the sunlight. They moved in perfect formation, creating a wall of metal and energy that stretched across the darkness. Commander Vextal stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet through his viewing screen. His reptilian eyes glowed with satisfaction. This was going to be easy. His sensors told him everything he needed to know about the creatures living on the third planet from the star they called Sol. The humans were weak. Their technology was primitive. They had nuclear weapons, but those were toys compared to what his Armada carried. They had small spacecraft that could barely leave their planet's atmosphere. Their cities were unprotected, their military forces scattered and poorly equipped. It would take maybe an hour to destroy their entire civilization. Vextal had conquered 47 worlds in his long career. He knew what advanced civilizations looked like. They had energy shields around their planets. They had fleets of warships patrolling their star systems. They had weapons that could destroy moons and defensive systems that could stop entire armadas. These humans had none of that. His scanners showed him crude satellites orbiting their planet, simple metal constructions that seemed to be used for communication and weather monitoring. Their military bases were easy to spot from space. Their weapons were chemical-based rockets and metal bullets. It was almost insulting to be sent here with such a large force. On Earth, Captain Jake Martinez was having the worst day of his life. The alert had come through at 3 a.m, waking him from a deep sleep. The massive alien fleet was impossible to miss. Every telescope on Earth and in orbit was pointed at the crystal ships hanging in space, like a deadly constellation. Jake sat in the command center at NORAD, watching the screens that showed the alien formation. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They moved like living things, adjusting their positions with smooth grace. Energy readings showed that each ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. "Sir, we're getting a communication from the alien fleet," reported Lieutenant Susan Clark, her voice tight with fear. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Jake nodded and activated the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone in the room step back. Commander Vextal was 7 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that seemed to absorb light. His eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and when he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "People of Earth," the alien commander said, his words translated by some kind of universal device. "I am Commander Vextal of the Zephyrian Empire. Your planet has been selected for conquest. You will surrender all military forces immediately. You will cease all resistance. You will prepare your population for relocation to work camps." The alien paused, his terrible eyes seeming to look directly at Jake through the screen. "You have 24 hours to comply. If you do not surrender, we will demonstrate our power by destroying one of your cities. Choose wisely, humans. Your survival depends on your obedience." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jake looked around at his team. These were experienced military personnel, people who had trained for every possible threat, but nobody had really prepared for this. The alien fleet was so massive, so advanced, that conventional warfare seemed pointless. "Get me the president," Jake said quietly, "and patch me through to General Paul Carter. We need to activate the emergency protocols." "Across the country, President." Lisa Thompson was already in the Situation Room, surrounded by advisors and military leaders. The alien ultimatum was being broadcast on every news channel in the world. Cities were beginning to panic. Stock markets were crashing. World leaders were calling for emergency meetings, but in a secret facility buried deep beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Alex Brooks was smiling. He had been waiting for this day for 30 years. The gray-haired scientist stood in front of a massive computer screen, watching the alien ships through hidden cameras placed throughout the solar system. "They're beautiful," he said to his assistant, Dr. Mary Foster. "Look at that formation. Perfect military precision. They're trying to intimidate us with their numbers and their technology." Mary looked confused. "Sir, shouldn't we be terrified? Their weapons readings are off the charts. Each of those ships could destroy New York City." Dr. Brooks turned to her with a grin that would have worried anyone who knew him well. "Mary, my dear, they're scanning us right now. Their sensors are incredibly advanced. They can detect every missile silo, every military base, every nuclear submarine we have. They know exactly how primitive our technology appears to be." He walked over to another screen that showed Earth from space. To any observer, the planet looked defenseless. A few small space stations orbited the world, obviously designed for research and communication. Some satellites moved in predictable patterns, clearly used for weather monitoring and GPS systems. "The question is," Dr. Brooks continued, "can their sensors detect what isn't there? Can they see through the greatest deception in human history?" Back in space, Commander Vextel was reviewing the scan results with his tactical officer, Sub-Commander Crate H. The data was exactly what he expected. The humans had approximately 15,000 nuclear weapons, but they were all primitive fission and fusion devices. Their delivery systems were chemical rockets that could be easily intercepted. Their space-based defenses were laughable. A few weapon platforms in orbit, armed with kinetic projectiles and simple energy weapons. Their fleet consisted of maybe 200 small ships that couldn't even leave their star system. It was like bringing a star destroyer to fight canoes. "Commander," Craig said, "shall we begin the attack immediately? There's no point in waiting 24 hours. They have no defenses that could threaten us." Vextal considered this. It was true that the humans posed no threat. His shields could absorb anything they threw at him. His weapons could crack their planet's crust. But there was something to be said for psychological warfare. Let them spend a day in terror, watching. His ships hang in their sky like a sword over their heads. "No," he decided, "we'll give them the full 24 hours. Let them panic. Let them realize how helpless they are. When we finally attack, they'll be so demoralized that they won't even try to fight back." As the alien commander made his decision, Jake Martinez was coordinating with military leaders around the world. Every government was asking the same question. What could they do against such overwhelming force? The answer, Jake knew, was nothing. At least, nothing that the aliens could see coming. The next morning, the world watched in horror as news channels showed the alien fleet hanging in space like a dark cloud. The ships had moved closer during the night, positioning themselves in a perfect sphere around Earth. Every few hours, they would pulse with bright light. Scanning the planet below, Commander Vextal was pleased with what his sensors were showing him. The humans were behaving exactly as he expected. Their military forces were moving frantically, trying to position their pathetic weapons for some kind of defense. It was like watching children play with toy soldiers. His scanners detected submarines surfacing all over the world's oceans. The nuclear missile silos were opening, preparing their primitive rockets. Fighter jets were scrambling from air bases, their pilots probably knowing they were flying to their deaths. It was almost sad to watch. "Commander," reported his weapons officer, "we're detecting increased activity around their major cities. It appears they're attempting to evacuate civilian populations." Vextal nodded. "Fear makes them predictable. They know they can't win, so they're trying to save as many lives as possible. Admirable, but pointless." On Earth, Jake Martinez was coordinating what looked like a desperate defense. He was in constant contact with military leaders around the world, and every conversation sounded the same: panic, desperation, the knowledge that conventional weapons were useless against alien technology. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Clark, "we're getting reports from all military installations. They're ready to launch everything we have on your command." Jake looked at the screens showing missile silos across America. Each one was armed with the most powerful nuclear weapons humanity had ever built. It wouldn't be enough. The alien shields could probably absorb a direct hit from every nuclear weapon on Earth. But Jake had received a very different set of orders from General Carter. Orders that officially didn't exist. Orders that would sound insane to anyone who didn't know the truth. "Maintain defensive positions," Jake commanded. "Do not fire unless directly attacked. And make sure our formations look as weak as possible." Lieutenant Clark looked confused, but she followed orders. Across the world, military commanders were receiving similar instructions. Make it look like they were trying their best with inadequate resources. Show fear. Show desperation. But don't reveal anything that might make the aliens suspicious. In the underground facility in Nevada, Dr. Brooks was having the time of his life. He stood in front of a wall of monitors, each one showing a different aspect of the deception. Holographic projectors were working overtime, creating false images of military installations and weapon systems. "Mary, look at this," he said, pointing to a screen showing the alien scanning patterns. "They're using quantum resonance sensors, very advanced. They can detect energy signatures, material compositions, even the thoughts of telepathic species." Dr. Foster looked worried. "Then how can we possibly hide anything from them?" Dr. Brooks smiled and walked over to another console. "Because 30 years ago, we learned something very important about advanced alien technology. It's designed to detect advanced alien technology. It's not designed to detect something that doesn't exist yet." He activated a series of displays, showing what the aliens were actually seeing. Earth appeared to be defended by nuclear weapons, chemical rockets, and simple energy shields. The space stations looked like basic research facilities. The underground military bases appeared to be nothing more than reinforced bunkers. "They're seeing exactly what we want them to see," Dr. Brooks explained. "A primitive civilization that's trying to fight back with stone knives and bearskins." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Amy Price was managing the most complex holographic projection in human history. From her command post in Colorado, she controlled thousands of projectors hidden across Earth's surface and in orbit. Each one was designed to create false heat signatures, fake energy readings, and convincing images of primitive human technology. "Status report," she asked her technical team. "All projectors are functioning normally," reported Sergeant Danny. "Torres, the aliens are scanning constantly, but they're only detecting our false signatures. As far as they know, our most advanced weapon is a hydrogen bomb." Amy nodded with satisfaction. The projectors were humanity's greatest secret. They had been developed using alien technology recovered from crashed scout ships over the past 3 decades. The aliens had been studying Earth for years, but they had never realized that humans were studying them right back. The holographic systems worked by creating quantum echoes of primitive technology. When the aliens scanned Earth, their sensors detected nuclear weapons, chemical rockets, and simple computers. They had no idea that humanity had developed quantum tunneling devices, phase shift generators, and weapons that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Commander Vexto was growing impatient. The humans had been running around like frightened animals for 18 hours. Their military was clearly preparing for some kind of desperate last stand. It was time to show them how pointless their resistance would be. "Charge the main plasma cannon," he ordered. "We'll destroy one of their cities as a demonstration. That should convince them to surrender." His weapons officer began the charging sequence. The plasma cannon was the most powerful weapon in the Zephyrian arsenal. It could punch through planetary shields, vaporize mountains, and turn oceans into steam. Against unprotected human cities, it would be like using a star destroyer to swat a fly. "Target locked on the human city they call New York," reported the weapons officer. "Shall I fire when ready?" Vextal looked at the target on his screen. 8 million humans lived in that city. In a few moments, they would all be dead, and the rest of humanity would understand the futility of resistance. "Not yet," he said. "First, let's send them a message. Let them know it's coming." The communication went out on all frequencies. Commander Vextal's reptilian face appeared on every screen on Earth. "People of Earth, you have 3 hours remaining. To demonstrate our power, we will now destroy the city you call New York. Watch carefully, and remember that this is the fate that awaits your entire species if you do not surrender." In the Situation Room, President Thompson watched the alien commander with growing anger. "How long until they fire?" "Plasma cannon will be fully charged in 10 minutes, reported an aide. "After that, they can fire at will." The president looked around the room at her advisors. They all had the same expression, the helpless rage of people who were about to watch millions of innocent people die. "Ma'am," said General Carter quietly, "we could activate the defense grid early, save the city." President Thompson shook her head. "Not yet. We stick to the plan. Let them fire first." It was the hardest decision she had ever made. 8 million American citizens were about to die, and she was going to let it happen. But if they revealed their defenses too early, the aliens might realize they were being deceived. The greater good required terrible sacrifices. Dr. Brooks was watching the same countdown, but his expression was calm. "Mary, activate the quantum phase generators around New York. Set them to full defensive mode, but keep them invisible to alien sensors." "Sir, are you sure this will work?" Mary asked, her hands shaking as she worked the controls. "Trust me," Dr. Brooks replied. "We've been testing these systems for years. The aliens can't detect something that technically doesn't exist in their dimension." Around New York City, buried deep underground, massive generators began to hum with power. They had been built using principles that human scientists had discovered by studying alien technology. The generators could create shields that existed slightly outside normal spacetime, making them invisible to conventional sensors. To the aliens, New York looked completely undefended. To the humans who knew the truth, the city was surrounded by the most advanced defensive system ever created. Commander Vextal watched the countdown with satisfaction. In 2 minutes, the humans would learn that their primitive planet was completely at his mercy. After that, they would surrender, and he would add another easy conquest to his record. He had no idea that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his very long life. The plasma cannon fired with a sound like tearing reality. A beam of pure energy, brighter than the sun, lanced down from the alien flagship toward New York City. The beam was powerful enough to vaporize mountains and boil oceans. It should have turned the entire city into a crater of molten glass. Instead, it simply stopped. The plasma beam hit something invisible 20 miles above the city and disappeared. Not absorbed, not deflected, but completely neutralized, as if it had never existed. The energy readings on the alien ship showed that the weapon had fired perfectly, but the target was completely unharmed. Commander Vextal stared at his screens in disbelief. His sensors showed no shields, no energy barriers, no defensive systems of any kind. Yet somehow, his most powerful weapon had been completely useless. What happened? He demanded, his voice filled with confusion and growing anger. "Sub-Commander." Kraith was frantically working at his console, running diagnostic after diagnostic. "Sir, the weapon fired normally." All systems are functioning perfectly. The energy beam reached the target and then vanished. Impossible, Vextal snarled. Nothing can stop a plasma cannon without leaving some kind of energy signature. Scan. The area again. Maximum resolution. The alien scanners swept over New York City with incredible precision. They detected 8 million human life forms, all still alive and apparently unharmed. They detected primitive buildings made of steel and concrete. They detected simple vehicles moving through the streets. But there was no sign of any defensive technology. On Earth, Jake Martinez was trying not to smile. The defense grid had worked perfectly. The quantum phase generators had absorbed the alien weapon's energy and shunted it into another dimension. To the aliens, it must have looked like their attack had simply disappeared. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Clark, "we're getting reports from New York. No damage, no casualties." The alien weapon had no effect whatsoever. Jake nodded calmly, as if he had expected this result. Good. Now we wait for them to try again. In the underground facility, Dr. Brooks was practically dancing with joy. "Mary, did you see that? 30 years of research, and it worked perfectly. The aliens can't detect quantum phase technology because it operates on principles their science never discovered." Dr. Foster was staring at the energy readings in amazement. "Sir, their plasma cannon released enough energy to power our entire planet for a year. Our generators absorbed it all and converted it into useful power. We just gained more energy than we've ever had before." Dr. Brooks laughed out loud. "Oh, this is even better than I hoped. Not only can we defend against their weapons, but we can actually use their attacks to power our own systems. They're not just failing to hurt us, they're making us stronger." Commander Vextal was becoming increasingly agitated. He had fired his most powerful weapon at a completely undefended target, and somehow it had failed. This was impossible. His technology was superior to anything these primitive humans could have developed. "Fire again," he ordered. "Maximum power. Target the same location." The plasma cannon charged again, this time drawing power from the ship's main reactor. The beam that lanced toward Earth was twice as powerful as the first shot. It should have been able to crack the planet's crust. Again, it simply disappeared. "Sir," reported the weapons officer, his voice shaking with confusion, "the weapon fired normally, but there's no sign of impact. The target is completely unharmed." Vextal's yellow eyes were beginning to glow with rage. "Try the particle beam cannons. All of them full power. 20 massive weapons fired simultaneously from the alien flagship. Beams of concentrated particles, each one capable of cutting through starship armor, converged on New York City. The combined energy output was enough to destroy a small moon. All 20 beams disappeared without a trace. "Sir," Sub-Commander Kraith said quietly, "I'm detecting an incoming transmission from the human planet. It's coming from their military command structure." Vextal activated the communication system, expecting to hear human pleas for mercy. Instead, he saw a middle-aged human male in a military uniform, sitting calmly in what appeared to be a simple command center. "Commander Vextal," the human said, his voice steady and confident. "This is Captain Jake Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. I hope you're enjoying your target practice." The alien commander's scales darkened with fury. "Human, explain how." "You are defending against our weapons. Our scanners detect no defensive systems." Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "That's because you're looking for the wrong thing. You're scanning for shields, for energy barriers, for the kind of primitive defenses that most species use. But we're not most species. Impossible," Bextel snarled. "Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your weapons are chemical rockets and metal bullets. Your defenses are simple energy shields. Is that what you see when you scan us?" Jake asked, his smile growing wider. How interesting. Tell me, Commander, what do your sensors show when they scan the space around your own ships? Vextal looked confused, but he ordered his sensors to scan the area around his fleet. The readings showed empty space, a few small asteroids, and the distant glow of human space stations. Nothing that could threaten his armada. I see nothing of significance, he reported. Look closer, Jake suggested. Scan for quantum phase signatures. Look for dimensional displacement patterns. Check for temporal distortion fields. The alien commander ordered his technicians to run the suggested scans. The results made his blood run cold. The space around his fleet was filled with objects that his sensors couldn't detect. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons platforms that phased in and out of reality. Defensive systems that operated on principles his science had never discovered. What is this? Vextal whispered, his voice filled with growing horror. Jake's expression became deadly serious. This is what happens when a species learns to hide its true capabilities. 30 years ago, your people sent scout ships to study Earth. You probably thought we never noticed. But we did notice. We shot down your scouts, we studied your technology, and we learned how to stay invisible to your sensors. The alien commander's mind was racing. If the humans had been studying Zephyrian technology for 30 years, if they had learned to hide their true capabilities, then everything he thought he knew about this mission was wrong. You've been deceiving us, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. From the very beginning, Jake confirmed. We knew you were coming. We knew you would scan our planet and see primitive technology. We knew you would underestimate us. So we gave you exactly what you expected to see. Commander Vextal looked at his tactical displays with new eyes. The human planet that had appeared defenseless was actually surrounded by weapons and defenses he couldn't even detect. The primitive space stations were probably advanced military bases. The simple orbital platforms were likely weapon systems, more advanced than anything in his fleet. How many ships do you have hidden out there? He asked. Jake's smile became truly terrifying. Enough. As if responding to his words, the space around the alien fleet began to shimmer. Ships began to appear out of nowhere, materializing from stealth systems that the aliens couldn't detect. They were sleek, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light. Their designs were unlike anything in Zephyrian databases. Commander, Sub-Commander Craig H.E. reported, his voice filled with panic. We're detecting massive energy signatures all around us. Ships are appearing everywhere. We're completely surrounded. Vextal stared at the tactical display in horror. 200 human ships had appeared around his fleet, and his sensors were detecting more every second. These weren't the primitive spacecraft he had expected. These were advanced warships with technology he didn't recognize. You've been planning this for 30 years, he said, the full scope of the deception finally becoming clear. Actually, Jake replied, we've been planning this for much longer than that. We've been waiting for someone like you to come along, someone arrogant enough to underestimate us, someone who would scan our planet and see exactly what we wanted them to see. The alien commander realized that his fleet was not the hunter in this situation. They were the prey, and they had walked directly into the trap. What do you want? He asked. Jake's expression remained cold and professional. What we want is for you to understand that Earth is not defenseless. We are not primitive, and we are definitely not easy prey. As if to emphasize his point, the human ships began to power up their weapons. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Zephyrian databases. These weren't crude chemical rockets or simple energy beams. These were weapons that operated on principles the aliens had never encountered. Commander Vextal realized that his perfect military career was about to come to a very abrupt end. Commander Vextall made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Faced with an enemy he couldn't understand using technology he couldn't detect, he chose to rely on the one thing that had never failed him: overwhelming firepower. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, open fire. Everything you have, destroy them all. 500 alien warships opened fire simultaneously. The space around Earth lit up like a second sun as plasma cannons, particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and gravitational disruptors all fired at once. The combined energy output was enough to sterilize an entire star system. Every shot was absorbed by Earth's invisible defenses. The planet hung in space, completely unharmed, as the most powerful military force in the galaxy emptied their weapons. At it, the quantum phase generators that Dr. Brooks had spent 30 years perfecting absorbed the incredible energy assault and converted it into power for Earth's hidden systems. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Clark, her voice filled with awe, "our power grids are at 300% capacity. The alien weapons are actually charging our systems." Jake Martinez nodded calmly. "Good. Now let's show them what we do with all that extra power. Activate Operation Ghostwall. Drop all pretenses. Show them what we really are." Across the Earth, the greatest deception in human history came to an end. The holographic projectors that had been hiding humanity's true technology shut down. The quantum phase generators that had been keeping Earth's defenses invisible switched to full visibility mode. The stealth systems that had been hiding the human fleet deactivated in the underground facility. Dr. Brooks was watching his life's work finally revealed. "Mary, bring all systems online. Full power. It's time to stop pretending we're primitive." The transformation was incredible. Earth's simple orbital stations shed their fake outer shells, revealing massive weapons platforms bristling with advanced technology. The crude satellites expanded into sophisticated defense networks. The primitive spaceports opened like flowers, revealing hidden launch bays filled with advanced fighters. But the most shocking transformation was on Earth's surface. What had appeared to be simple cities were revealed to be massive military complexes. Every major population center had hidden weapon systems, shield generators, and launch facilities. The planet that had looked defenseless was actually one giant fortress. Commander Vextall watched his tactical displays with growing horror. The primitive planet he had planned to conquer was revealing technology more advanced than anything in his fleet. The humans hadn't just been hiding their defenses, they had been hiding an entire civilization. "Sir," Sub-Commander Kraith reported, his voice shaking, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the human planet. They have weapons platforms everywhere. Their cities are armed fortresses. Their defensive systems are more advanced than ours." But the worst revelation was still to come. The human ships surrounding the alien fleet began to reveal their true capabilities. What had appeared to be simple stealth systems were actually something much more advanced. The ships weren't just invisible, they were existing in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, Commander Lisa Hayes, leading the Earth Defense Fleet, opened communication with the alien flagship. She was a stern-looking woman in her 50s, wearing the uniform of the Earth Space Navy. Behind her, the bridge of her ship was filled with technology that made alien systems look primitive. "Commander Vextall," she said, her voice cold and professional, "this is Admiral Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have just attacked a sovereign world without provocation. You have threatened the lives of 8 billion innocent people. You have exactly 1 minute to surrender your fleet, or we will demonstrate why that was a mistake." The alien commander looked at his tactical displays in desperation. His sensors were now detecting over 300 human ships, all of them more advanced than his flagship. Worse, his weapons had proven completely ineffective against their defenses. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Your technology should be centuries behind ours. Admiral Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Should be? Commander, you've made a fundamental error. You assumed that because we appeared primitive, we actually were primitive. You never considered that a truly advanced civilization might choose to hide its capabilities. She gestured to something off-screen, and the alien commander's worst fears were confirmed. The space around Earth was filled with hidden installations, orbital weapons platforms that could punch through starship armor, defensive satellites that could create impenetrable force fields, manufacturing facilities that were producing new warships even as they watched. You see, Commander, Admiral Hayes continued, we've been studying your people for 30 years. We know your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. We've been preparing for this day since the first time one of your scout ships violated our space. Colonel Ryan Mitchell, coordinating the ground-based assault from his command center in Tanne, Colorado, activated the next phase of the counterattack. Across Earth's surface, hidden launch silos opened like mechanical flowers. Missiles began to rise from locations that the aliens had never detected. But these weren't the primitive nuclear weapons that the alien scanners had detected. These were quantum phase torpedoes, designed using principles that human scientists had discovered by studying captured alien technology. Each missile could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them impossible to intercept or defend against. Sir, reported Sergeant Torres, all ground-based systems are online. We have target locks on every alien ship. Ryan nodded grimly. Fire when ready. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth. The missiles launched from hidden silos across the planet. They phased in and out of reality as they flew, making them invisible to alien sensors until the moment of impact. The first wave struck the alien fleet before they even knew they were under attack. The results were devastating. The alien ships, designed to fight enemies using conventional technology, had no defense against weapons they could phase through. Their shields and armor, ships that had seemed invincible moments before, began to explode in brilliant flashes of light. Commander Vextal watched in horror as his mighty fleet was being destroyed by enemies he couldn't even see coming. His shields were useless, his weapons were ineffective, and his sensors couldn't track the human attacks. Sir, Sub-Commander Crate reported, we've lost 50 ships in the first wave. The human weapons are passing through our shields as if they don't exist. Return fire, Vextal ordered desperately. All ships, target the human vessels. But it was hopeless. The human ships were using technology that the aliens couldn't understand. They could phase in and out of reality, making them impossible to target. They could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, attacking from angles that didn't exist in normal space. Admiral Hayes watched the alien fleet's desperate counterattack with professional interest. Their weapons are impressive, she commented to her tactical officer. But they're designed to fight enemies who use the same technology they do. They have no idea how to fight an enemy that operates on completely different principles. The human fleet began its own attack. Their weapons were unlike anything in galactic databases. Phase cannons that could exist in multiple dimensions. Quantum torpedoes that could strike targets in the past. Gravitational disruptors that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. The alien fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes before, was being systematically destroyed. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant fireballs as human weapons found their targets. The survivors were desperately trying to retreat, but they were completely surrounded. Commander Vextal realized that his fleet was doomed. In less than 30 minutes, the humans had destroyed or disabled over half of his ships. His weapons were useless, his defenses were meaningless, and his tactical advantages had evaporated. Sir, Sub-Commander Crate said quietly, we're receiving. Surrender offers from the human fleet. They're willing to accept our unconditional surrender. Vextile looked at his tactical displays one last time. 300 alien ships were still functional, but they were surrounded by human forces that could destroy them at will. His crew was looking at him with expressions of fear and desperation. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vextile was forced to admit defeat. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Hayes appeared on his screen, her expression cold and professional. "Commander, are you prepared to surrender your fleet?" The alien commander looked at the ruins of his mighty armada. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now floating wrecks. His reputation as an invincible military leader was destroyed. His pride as a Zephyrian warrior was broken. "What are your terms?" he asked. Admiral Hayes smiled, and this time it was genuinely pleasant. "Simple. You will order your surviving ships to power down their weapons. You will submit to boarding by our forces. You will provide us with complete intelligence on your empire's military capabilities. And you will carry a message back to your leaders." "What message?" Vextile asked. "That Earth is not to be disturbed, ever, by anyone. We don't want to conquer your empire, Commander. We just want to be left alone. But if anyone else decides to threaten our world, they will face the same fate you did. Co." 3 hours after the battle ended, Commander Vextile stood in the docking bay of Admiral Hayes' flagship. The human ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. The corridors were filled with technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. The walls themselves appeared to be made of some kind of living metal that responded to the crew's presence. The alien commander was no longer the proud warrior who had arrived to conquer Earth. His scales had turned a dull gray color, a sign of shame and defeat among his people. His yellow eyes, once bright with confidence, now stared at the floor as human guards escorted him through the ship. Admiral Hayes was waiting for him in her ready room, a comfortable space filled with books and star charts. She gestured for him to sit in a chair that automatically adjusted to his reptilian physique. Despite being his captor, she treated him with the respect due to a fellow military officer. "Commander," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee, "I imagine you have questions." Vextile looked up at her with confusion and bitter curiosity. "How long have you been planning this? How long have you known we were coming?" Admiral Hayes smiled and activated a holographic display. It showed a timeline stretching back 50 years. "We've been watching your empire expand across the galaxy for decades. We saw what happened to the Andromedan colonies. We witnessed the fall of the Centauri Federation. We knew it was only a matter of time before you noticed Earth." The display showed images of destroyed worlds, conquered civilizations, and the steady expansion of the Zephyrian Empire. Vextile recognized many of the battles. He had participated in most of them. "You study your enemies," he said with growing understanding. "We study everyone," Admiral Hayes corrected. "That's what makes us different from most species. We don't wait for threats to come to us. We identify them early and prepare accordingly." She touched the display, and it showed the first alien scout ship that had crashed on Earth 30 years ago. "When your people sent reconnaissance missions to our system, we didn't just hide from them. We captured them. We studied their technology. We learned how your sensors work, how your weapons function, how your tactics operate." Vextile's eyes widened as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. "You've been preparing for this specific battle for 30 years. Longer than that," Admiral Hayes admitted. "We've been preparing for the possibility of alien invasion since we first developed spaceflight. When we discovered we weren't alone in the galaxy, we made a conscious decision to remain hidden while we developed our defenses." The holographic display showed the secret construction projects that had been hidden from alien observation. underground facilities that built advanced weapons, orbital platforms disguised as simple research stations, entire fleets of ships constructed in hidden shipyards. Your civilization appears primitive because you want it to, Vextal said, understanding. Dawning in his voice. Exactly, Admiral Hayes confirmed. We could have revealed our technology years ago. We could have announced ourselves to the galaxy as an advanced civilization. But we chose not to. We chose to remain hidden until we are strong enough to defend ourselves against any threat. She activated another display showing Earth's true defensive capabilities. The planet was surrounded by weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. The moon had been converted into a massive fortress. Even the asteroids in the solar system had been equipped with hidden weapon systems. Every world your empire has conquered made the same mistake, Admiral Hayes continued. They revealed their strength too early. They tried to intimidate their enemies with displays of power. They never considered that true strength comes from being underestimated. Commander Vextal looked at the tactical displays with growing awe and horror. Earth wasn't just defended, it was a trap designed specifically for species like his own. Every aspect of the planet's apparent primitiveness had been carefully calculated to lure overconfident invaders into a false sense of security. You turned our own arrogance against us, he said. We turned your tactics against you, Admiral Hayes corrected. Your empire conquers primitive worlds by overwhelming them with superior technology. You scan a planet, identify its defenses, and then bring enough firepower to crush any resistance. It's a strategy that has worked for centuries. She leaned forward, her expression becoming serious. But it only works against enemies who fight the way you expect them to fight. It fails completely against an enemy who refuses to play by your rules. The alien commander was beginning to understand why his defeat had been so complete. His entire military doctrine was based on fighting enemies who used conventional technology and tactics. He had no experience fighting an enemy that could exist in multiple dimensions, phase through solid matter, or hide entire fleets in plain sight. What happens now? He asked. Will you destroy my empire? Admiral Hayes shook her head. We have no interest in conquest, Commander. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. She activated a final display showing the current state of his fleet. Of the 500 ships that had arrived at Earth, only 200 were still functional. The rest were either destroyed or so badly damaged they would never fly again. You will take your surviving ships and return to your empire, Admiral Hayes explained. You will report to your leaders that Earth is defended by technology they cannot defeat. You will recommend that your empire leave this system alone. Vextal looked at the tactical display showing his decimated fleet. They won't believe me. My commanders will think I'm lying to cover up my failure. That's why we're sending proof with you, Admiral Hayes said with a smile. She activated a holographic projector that showed complete scans of human technology. Weapons that could phase through matter. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions. Defenses that operated on principles unknown to galactic science. This data contains everything your scientists need to know about our capabilities, she explained. They'll be able to verify that your defeat was not due to tactical incompetence, but to technological superiority. The alien commander stared at the data in amazement. The humans were giving him intelligence that would normally be classified. At the highest levels, they were essentially handing him the secrets of their advanced technology. Why are you showing me this? He asked. Isn't this information dangerous in enemy hands? Admiral Hayes laughed, and it was a genuinely amused sound. Commander, this data shows you what our weapons can do, but it doesn't show you how to build them. Your scientists will be able to confirm that our technology exists, but they won't be able to duplicate it. She touched the display, showing the quantum principles that human technology was based on. The mathematics involved were incredibly complex, requiring scientific concepts that most galactic civilizations had never discovered. Besides, Admiral Hayes added, "We want your empire to know how advanced we are. We want them to understand that attacking Earth would be suicide. Fear is a much more effective deterrent than secrecy." Commander Vextal realized that the humans had thought of everything. They had defeated his fleet, captured his technology, and now they were sending him home with information that would terrify his entire empire. The message was clear. Earth was not to be touched. "There is one more thing," Admiral Hayes said, her expression becoming deadly serious. "This offer of peaceful coexistence only applies as long as your empire leaves us alone. If you or anyone else decides to attack Earth again, we won't be satisfied with just defending ourselves." She activated a display showing human ships moving through space at impossible speeds. "We've been building our fleet for 30 years, Commander. We have more ships than your empire knows about, hidden in places your scouts have never detected. If we decide to go on the offensive, we can strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning." The threat was clear, and Vextal understood it completely. Humanity was offering peace, but they were also demonstrating that they had the capability to wage war on a galactic scale if necessary. "I will deliver your message," he said formally, "and I will recommend that my empire accept your terms." "Admiral." Hayes nodded and stood up. "Good. Your ships are being refueled and resupplied as we speak. You'll be able to depart within the hour." As guards escorted the alien commander back to his ship, he took one last look at the human technology around him. The walls, the floors, even the air itself seemed to be filled with advanced systems that his people couldn't even detect, let alone understand. 6 hours later, as surviving ships of the Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth, Commander Vextal sat on his damaged bridge, watching the blue planet shrink in the distance. He was carrying data that would revolutionize his empire's understanding of human capabilities, along with a warning that would echo through the halls of power for generations. Behind them, Earth returned to its carefully maintained facade of primitiveness. The advanced weapons disappeared behind holographic projectors. The quantum phase generators became invisible to alien sensors. The mighty defense fleet faded back into stealth mode, not to any casual observer. Earth once again appeared to be a simple world inhabited by primitive creatures with basic technology. But now the galaxy would know the truth. Sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that looks like harmless prey Dr. Brooks stood in high.